Hey guys, my name is Beats and Sync, and this video is a beginner's guide for Sony Vegas Pro 12. Because this video is going to be quite long, I'm going to split it up into multiple sections. These sections will be displayed on your screen now, and using YouTube annotations you can click on whichever section you want to jump to. If you are new to Sony Vegas, I would definitely recommend watching the entire video. First of all guys, we're going to look at the interface. Now when you first load up Sony Vegas, this is what you'll be presented with. These tabs down here: Project Media, Explorer, Transitions, Video Effects and Media Generators. Now the Project Media tab, this area basically holds all of the media such as video files and audio files. This is where you store all the media you're going to use in your video. Now to get your project's media in this section, you need to import it. Now there are many ways to do this. One would be if you go up here to File, Import, Media. Then after clicking this tab, you will navigate your way through your computer, like Windows Explorer, and click on any media you want and it will appear in this box here. Another way to do this is to physically drag and drop it from your Windows Explorer, as I will do now. Just open up your Windows Explorer and just drag the media into this space. Now the other tabs down here, we have the Explorer tab. Now this is very similar to what you just did, but you're doing it within the program. Now the Transition tab and the Video Effects tab, these are a bit more technical, so I'll go into them in more depth later, but they are quite self-explanatory. Now the final tab is Media Generators. Now this tab holds all the media that Sony has provided for you. These include just basic animations, text, animated text, you name it, it is in this tab. After you have imported your media into the project media space, you can then apply it to the timeline. Now the timeline is situated at the bottom here and is broken up into layers. And whatever is on this timeline is then shown in this preview window up here on the top right. Now with this preview window, you have the basic controls down here. You also have the option to press this button. Now if you're lucky enough to have two monitors, you'll be able to click this button and the preview box will be moved over to full screen mode onto your second monitor. Now I have two monitors and I find this feature absolutely fantastic because it means I have a lot more space for my timeline, so I can move my timeline up like this and have the full screen timeline. Now for larger projects I would highly recommend this, it's very useful. However, if you don't have dual screens, unfortunately you cannot use this feature. Another cool feature in this preview box is this button right here. This is this split screen view. So you can have a side-by-side comparison of your effects that you've applied on and off, which I find very useful. Now, this is quite important, this tab up here, the preview quality. Now depending on your computer and how powerful it is, this is very important. If you don't have a very powerful computer, don't have much RAM, don't have a good graphics card, then you're going to need to select this as preview and auto. Now what this will do is this will lower the quality of your preview, so it will run a lot smoother and they'll keep the frame rate basically. However, if you're on a good computer, you've got really decent RAM, good graphics card, then feel free to go best and full. That's what I use. I've got a pretty good computer. Now after doing this, don't think that will affect your final video. This is only for how it looks in the preview box. After you have rendered your video and exported it, it will look its best. But this is only for the preview. This is only if your computer is struggling with it and it's lagging. Alright guys, that's pretty much it for the interface. So now we're going to move on to actually putting the media into the timeline and doing stuff with it. Now to add your clips to the timeline, you can drag it from your Project Media tab You just drag and drop onto the timeline like so. Now as you notice, this box will appear. It might not appear, in my case it has done, and that's basically saying that my project has different settings to this video file. Now if most of your video files within your project are going to be the same as your first one, then by all means click yes. That will mean your project will look its best, basically, because it will match your project to the clips project, which means the frame rates will sync up, the aspect ratio, the resolution will sync up, it will look its best basically. So as you can see, it has now applied it onto the timeline, and you're presented with these two layers. These are two different layers. The top layer is the video layer and the bottom layer is the audio layer. You can't have a video on an audio layer or an audio on a video layer. Let's just keep it organized. After we have our video on our timeline, we can start doing stuff to it. Now we're going to be moving on to adding transitions and video effects. Now to add a transition to your video, you will need to go to the Transitions tab. Now this tab will basically list all the transitions inbuilt in Sony Vegas, all the ones that Sony have provided for you. Now if you click on any of these sections down here, it will give you a vast array of previews, and by just hovering your mouse over the top, it will show you what it's basically doing. So you basically just find whichever one you want and you just drag it onto your clip. Now before we add the transition, I'm going to split this clip up so we have two clips so we can transition into both of them. Okay, so let's just, in a real world thing, on this clip I die about here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this clip, and I'm going to split it by using S on my keyboard. So I'm going to make sure I've highlighted the exact point I want to split the clip, and then I'm going to press S. And what that'll do is that will split the clip in wherever I left my cursor. That means I can now move them separate of each other. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to when I respawn. Okay, here's fine. So I'm going to repeat the same process and press S on my keyboard, and that will split the clip like so. Now I don't want this middle section, so what I can do now is simply click on it and press delete on my keyboard, and that will get rid of it. So now we have two clips, but we have a gap. Now if we don't put a transition in there, it's just going to look pretty rubbish. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a transition. So we're going to put the clips up like this, and we're going to, let's see, just go through here, there we go, and let's just click a basic one, linear wipe, and all you need to do is click and drag whichever one of these you want into the middle of these two clips, like so. And what that'll do, this will bring up the video event FX window. Now this window will pop up every time you insert an effect or a transition or text or whatever. A window similar to this will pop up giving you options on how to change it and modify it. Now for the purpose of this video, I'm going to leave it as it is and exit this window here. Now if we zoom in, and you can zoom in by either using these buttons down here or using the scroll wheel. Now it will always scroll into where your cursor is. So if I click here and then roll the wheel in, it will zoom in on this spot. Now with the transition here, you can, by moving your cursor to the edge of it, you can lengthen it, you can shorten it, you can basically say how long it's going to last. So we can preview this now, seeing the transition. Now that's a lot better than just snapping to black. Okay, well that is the transitions sorted. Now we're going to look into how to add a video effect onto these clips. Now to do this, you need to go to the Video FX tab located here, and it's very similar to the transitions of how we added those. You get presented with a list of all the inbuilt effects provided by Sony, and you can just click on any of these and it will bring up previews of the different presets. I'm going to drag on the color correct default onto this second clip here. Now as you've seen before, this window will pop up again, and this will allow you to change the effect how you like. So I'm going to just do some very simple changes, just so you can see how it affects the way everything looks. Just by changing these bars, you get a real-time preview of how it's affecting the video. Now if you ever want to revert a bar back to its original place, its default place, all you have to do is double click on it, and that'll send it right back to its original. It's the same with these circles here. You just double click and it will revert it back to the middle. So I'm not going to change it this much. I'm just going to put up the saturation, make the colours like really stand out. Now if you don't want an effect to last the entirety of the clip you've selected, you can either use the method I've shown you before about splitting the clip up and just split it down to the sections you want having the effect on, or you can do a more accurate way of animating the effects. Now to do this, all you have to do is find this animate button, and this is situated pretty much next to all the effects you have an option to do, and if you click on this button, it will bring up a second timeline within the FX window. Now what this allows you to do is control the way or how long the effect stays on for. I always find it best to have this button selected. What this does is it mirrors the place on the actual timeline with this FX timeline. Now if you don't select this, it can be quite confusing, and I just find it best to do it that way. So I want this effect to gradually fade out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a keyframe by clicking this button right here, and once I've got this keyframe, I can now change it. So by clicking on this keyframe, I've now selected a new spot in the video which I can change the effects. So I'm going to revert the saturation back down to 1, and as you can see, all the way from the beginning, it is gradually moving down back to its original point. Now you can change all of these by just clicking on these buttons, and this will add another layer to this mini timeline, and you can change them how you like by adding and taking away keyframes as you wish. Now this tutorial isn't a color correction tutorial, so I'm just going to leave it as it is like that. Okay, so that is basically video effects. If you want to see more in-depth looks at more video effects and how to use them properly, make sure after watching this video is to check out the rest of my channel, because I have numerous videos explaining how to do cool effects on your videos. Right, so that is pretty much the basics of adding video effects to your video. Now we're going to be moving on to how to insert text into your video. To do this, you'll need to go to the Media Generators tab, then select Titles and Text. Now here you have, again, lots of presets made by Sony that you can use. You can also make your own, and they will be found in this area here. But for now, what I'm going to do is just add just some default text, like so. Now again, as I've said before, this video will always pop up when you add effects, transitions, text, you name it. It'll pop up so you have an option to edit what you've got on the screen. Now before we can edit this, I'm going to exit out of this. You can see that this layer is below all the other video layers. Now the video layer on the top is the one that's shown on the top, and everything else is below it. So at the moment you can't see this text layer. So what we're going to need to do is drag and drop this layer on top. And what that will do is that will make whatever on this layer visible before this layer. Now we can see our text, we can go back and edit it. To bring up the editing window for your clip, you need to click this button right here, the generated media button. Now once in here, you can change this text to whatever you want. So I'm just going to just put in anything, just anything you want. And you can obviously change the font, the size, you know, where it is, the color. You can have numerous animations that it could do, the scale, you can change that, shadows, outlines, you know, there's lots of things you can do and explore within this tab. And as always, you can animate any of these things. So if you wanted to change colors or move around, then you can animate the scale, the position, the location. You know, you can basically edit everything you want about this text. So we've got our text on there. Now for most clips, doesn't really look nice for it to just flash up and just flash off. In most cases, you're going to want to fade in and out. Now to do this, all you need to do is go to the clip you want, go to the top left or the top right corner, hover your mouse over it, and your cursor should change like this. Now once your cursor is like this, you can drag and hold, and if you drag it inwards, you can see that curved line in the clip, and that is basically tracking the opacity of the clip, so it produces the fade in effect. Now to fade it out, you just repeat this process, but you do it on the end of the clip instead. Now this fading in and out isn't just for video files, you can do it with audio files as well. So what I'm going to do is just quickly fade out that music, fade it in, and just make it so it's not too harsh. So yeah. So just to recap so far of what we've done, we have imported our media, we have put it on the timeline, we have chopped our clip up, we have trimmed it, we have added a transition, we've added some video effects to make it look nicer, we've added some text, we have faded in and out to make it look smoother. So now, the last thing you need to do is save your project. There are a few ways to save your project. By just saving the project, so by doing File, Save As, and then saving it as whatever, you're saving it as a project file. Now this project file will only be able to be opened in Sony Vegas, and it won't be an actual video, it will be a project file. That means that you can open it at a later time and continue editing, but it's not an actual video. To get an actual video and to fully export and render it, you need to go File, Render As. Now after pressing that, you'll be sent to this window here. Now this will give you all the options you'll need to select how you want it to be exported. So you'll have the folder location, you'll have the name, and the output format really is the most important part of it. You need to select the kind of quality you would like. So I'm going to select this section, the 1080p 30 frames per second video. If you want to change this, however, in any way, you can go down to here and customize template. Now in here you have all sorts of options to change it however you like. I would say this is a bit more advanced, and you've got to know, kind of have some basic understanding of video files to get the best out of this feature. So if you're like a brand new person for Sony Vegas, I wouldn't recommend doing this. I'll just select the presets in here, and there's many to choose from. You can either save it as a video file like I'm doing, or if you're just using audio, you can just select the MP3 audio and just render the audio by itself. But I'm going to click the 1080p video, and I'm going to scroll down a bit further. Now, these render options are sometimes quite useful, because if you don't want to render the entire project, let's say it's a really large project and it's going to take a while, or you only want to render a section of it, then you want to check this checkbox right here, because what this means is it renders the loop region only. So for example, if I go back out of here and let's say I only want this section, all I need to do is on the timeline click and drag, and it basically highlights this section, and I only want that part of the video. So I'm going to go back, render as, and making sure the render loop region only is selected, it will only render that part of the video. However, I don't want that, I want all of it, so I'm going to uncheck that box. Now, all you have to do is press render. Now, depending on the spec of your computer, how powerful it is, then it is going to really affect how long that will take. But as I said before, don't worry about how good it looks in this preview box. It will always look its best after it's been fully rendered. Now, if your video is lagging at all in your preview area, and you really need to see a small section of your video before you fully render it, then you can do a thing called RAM preview. Now, this is accomplished by highlighting a part of your video that you want to render, and just highlight a section of it, and then press Shift, holding Shift, and press B. What that'll do is it will make a RAM preview of that section, meaning that it is like a quick version of a full render, so you can basically see a fully detailed section of your video without having to go through the whole process of rendering the entire project. Anyway guys, that is most of the tips and tricks for beginners. If you want more detailed, in-depth looks at more video effects, don't forget to check out the rest of my channel. I have several videos on there which will probably be very helpful to you. My name is Beats and Sync. If you've liked this video, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.